can answer the question, Judge. You can't handle the truth.
I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Rubs the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again.
Welcome to After Hours AM, The Criminal Code, with your hosts, Joel Sturgis, Eric Olson, and Dr. Clarissa Cole.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this edition of After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me, as always,
Eric Olson and
Dr. Clarissa Cole.
Oh, Clarissa, how we have missed you.
I have missed you guys, too. I feel like it's been a long time.
It does feel like it's been like ages and stuff. What the hell you been up to?
Not a whole lot. The weather's been getting a lot nicer out here, so just kind of trying to ease into the spring.
Yeah.
The allergies aren't helping me, though.
Well,
everything's blooming.
We still have snow over here, so.
It's snowing here right now.
Isn't it insane?
Seriously?
Yeah.
It is
We've had
insane.
a snowstorm all day long.
All day? Wow,
All day.
That's a snow event, my friend. That's a snow event.
It didn't start sticking till it got dark, but once it got dark, oh yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's not a lot of accumulation, but it's been flurrying and doing what it does all day.
All day long, man. All day. Hey, this is crazy. I've been getting a lot of emails from listeners going, are we ever going to get spring this year, or are we going to go right into summer, or is our summer over?
Well, I hope it isn't over.
I sure hope it isn't over either.
That would make me sad.
Oh, yeah. Talk about, people, though, that have that seasonal disorder. They're really having a hard time. I was reading an article that, wow, because of this extended winter, they are having a huge uptick in mental health crises.
I believe it. It's very depressing for people because it just seems like it's never going to end. It doesn't change.
This is it, baby.
And it's so dark out too. I remember it being really dark and clouded over all the time. That really gets to people.
I know. They're all going crazy go nuts. So if you live in the Midwest especially, get used to it. This is it.
Well, I mean, it's it for this year, but hopefully we will see some movement. The Indians' home opener is
I know, because the Twins is
it's supposed to snow.
Exactly. The Twins got the same problem. They're predicting a couple inches of snow on opening day. So we will have to see. Very rarely though does their games actually go off without a hitch up here. So it's usually that ends up being canceled. Usually the games.
Do you have? I can't even remember now because I know you changed stadiums. There's no dome on the?
No, it's all open now. It's Target Field now. Beautiful stadium. I think they spent like $2 or $3 billion. I'd say I'm sure it's not that high, but it sure seems that way. They spent that much money, and they used the smokers to pay for it.
Yeah, they do that here too.
Fine, you want to smoke? You're gonna buy us a stadium. Damn you, smokers! But don't quit. We need the money.
Yeah, drinkers here. It's smokers, drinkers, and those who don't come home at all. That's who's getting
It's like, oh, come on. I know something about that, but I won't talk about that.
Because only women bleed,
Oh. On that note, I don't know if you guys have been going.
Remember the old Alice Cooper song?
I do remember.
Drinks and don't come home at all.
I know.
Only women bleed.
I know. I know, and I love the song. I do. It's a great tune, but in today's climate, maybe that last part might not be socially acceptable anymore.
Yeah, it's Trumpian, isn't it?
It is. It definitely is. But, for months and months and months, or years it seems, I've been telling everyone about the criminalcode.com. Of course, that is our own resident forensic psychologist's website, Dr. Clarissa Cole. There you not only can get all of your true crime fixes going on, but you can gain further insight into the crimes that you're reading about and the crimes you want to know about by taking a peek at the doctor's notes. Again, that's thecriminalcode.com.
Thank you. I just put up a new post about one of the guys that is profiled in the show Mindhunter, so you might want to check it out.
Very, very interesting. Now, tonight we have a great show, like always, though. We have MayCay Beeler on.
MayCay, actually.
Oh,
Beeler.
Is that MayCay?
Yes.
I want to say MayCay. I don't know what the heck, man. My mother used to be a MayCay dealer back in the day. You know, she was a regular dealer. Yes, and so when I see that MayCay, I want to go MayCay for some reason. I'm thinking MayCay products. Yes, it's got to be MayCay, but no, it's MayCay, and she's a very accomplished pilot, and she had a brush with organized crime.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be a good interview, I think.
It will be top of next hour. You're not going to want to go anywhere because we take to the skies once again to talk about sex, drugs, and maybe some rock and roll. Okay, well, Eric, you know I'm sure you saw the news, the old YouTube over there, right? Huh?
Oh, yes, of course.
I know. And Clarissa, that's the first story I see in the old docket here.
What's that?
The YouTube
thing.
The YouTube shooter,
gosh.
man. She's nuts. It's a girl.
See, that's the thing. I've talked about that before, how mass shooters almost never are women, right? Like mass shooters are 90% of the time are men and white men at that.
Yeah.
The fact that this shooter is a woman, she's Iranian, and people aren't calling it a mass shooting. Now, I know that nobody died, but it doesn't actually matter.
No, because shoot at more than 4 people or whatever.
If this was, in my opinion, in my clinical opinion, this was an attempted mass shooting. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, yeah. She walked in there with her Smith & Wesson and started just blasting away.
And people do mass shootings for similar reasons, right? Like now, when women have typically done shootings, it's usually because of a jilted lover situation.
Oh, yeah, women, man. Let me tell you, I've read a lot of stories where they go on a shooting spree because their feel-bads were hurt.
They go specifically looking for the ex-lover. So I thought maybe she used to date somebody that worked at YouTube. That is where my mind went because that is where the statistics go.
Sure.
And that's what the cop said too. They said, "Is this a domestic dispute?" Oh no, she drove up from San Diego.
Wow, she had investment then. She had a drive in front of her to get there.
Like a 7-hour drive at least.
You would think that you'd cool off in that 7 hours, going, okay, maybe I shouldn't shoot these people.
All right, but think of it this way. The other hand of the coin, I think she felt jilted by YouTube. So it was a jilted woman.
Well, interesting.
Yeah, financially
But that's mass
jilted.
shooters, though. I was going to say mass shooters often feel jilted by the system, by other people. So it is sort of a love in that way. But I mean, she just was randomly shooting.
Now, did she kill herself at the end?
She did.
Oh, she
did? That's what they say, is that it was self-inflicted. Yeah, the cops responded very quickly, but she had just shot herself, and there are witness accounts saying that one person actually saw her. Do it.
Well, too bad they didn't do this in Sacramento. That's never would have happened there.
What, really?
Get it? Because those shooters, the guy with the cell phone.
Oh God, I was like, what? Because I work out of Sacramento. That would have been scary. No, but actually, what was really interesting about this story, and it's not being reported everywhere, so I just wanted to get this out there really quickly, is that her father called the police. She was reported missing, and he actually told authorities he thought she was going to YouTube.
Well, then they should have got her, brought her in, pulled her over on the highway, and stopped this whole thing even before it started.
And you know what the authorities said, what police said? They confirmed that they got the call from this guy and said, "Oh, we didn't think she meant that she was going to be violent." Why do you think he was calling?
What? My daughter's going to YouTube with a gun, and she's going to shoot people. Oh, we didn't think she's actually going to do it.
No, I mean, I'm not sure he said that she was going to shoot people or if he even knew she had a gun, but he was worried enough about her behavior leading up to this that he reported her missing almost immediately and called police and said, "I'm worried. I think she's going to YouTube." I mean, what else does that mean?
Well, yeah, I mean, I would definitely read that into it. Hey, she's going to YouTube. She has an axe to grind because they demonetized her channels. She's mad.
Exactly.
She's pissed. She ain't making no more money.
And they have a right to do that, right? Because they're a private company,
They
right?
can. It's kind of ironic because she probably used the money she made off YouTube to buy the gun.
She may well have. Yeah. So she said she was, I like the term, filtered. She was filtered out.
I've been filtered out before. Get over it, lady. All right?
And that's what she was mad about, being filtered.
We've all been filtered. All right? We know what it feels like. Doesn't mean we want to shoot everybody.
Oh man, I mean, and she was ranting about YouTube
on
her
YouTube
channel
on YouTube.
Kind of ironic in some ways. Like, they filtered her for other things, but they're like, oh, she's just threatening us now. So
I wish I
okay.
had.
I'm not really sure.
I wish I had the Alanis Morissette song all queued up. Don't you think it's ironic? Don't you think?
Of course, she doesn't know what irony is in that song.
No,
it's very meta, is what it is.
It is.
Once again, we're dealing with a meta situation.
Aren't they all, though, at the end of the day, it seems lately? They're all very meta. So anyhow, she shows up, starts just shooting at people randomly. It doesn't sound like she really had a target in mind. She just knew she wanted to shoot people.
Mm-hmm.
She wanted to shoot YouTube. She wanted to kill YouTube.
And it sounds like she walked into like a crowded area. I think they have like a courtyard there.
Yeah.
And she just walked into the public courtyard area and began shooting. The shooting did not last long. It was, I think it was very, very quick, and then she killed herself.
Well, it is California. I'm surprised they didn't try to hug it out.
Yeah, you'd think that people in California would be nicer. Let me just tell you, that's not always the case.
They are lovey-dovey over there, though. They really are. They try to hug it out.
Where? In California?
I don't know. That's the rest of the world. We look at it and go, wow, they really like to hug things out, don't they?
I live here. I'm telling you, it's not true. No, no, they don't. I mean, there's some Bay Area people, I think, that are very like more hippie, like the peace and love sort of. But most people, oh no, I've been treated nicer in the Midwest, to be honest.
Here's the deal, though. Now, have you guys? This is brought to my attention, and this could be completely wrong or it could be completely right. So I'm gonna ask for your judgment. Have you noticed, barring Texas, there has not been that many mass shootings in the Midwest, has there? Other than Columbine, of course. But I mean, by and large, the Midwest is not a big mass shooting area. Am I correct, or am I right or wrong?
You know what? I'm sure I could find stats on that while you're talking.
But the reason why I bring that up is I was talking to a couple buddies of mine that happened to work in law enforcement, and they brought that to my attention. And I asked them, well, why is that? And they said, because everybody's packing in the Midwest.
I don't think that. Yeah, I get it, but most people are packing in Florida too, and that doesn't help.
Yeah, well, I understand. The mentality is like if that mass shooting were to, I'm just going to use Minnesota for example, we have one of the highest per capita conceal and carry permits anywhere in the state.
Oh, you don't want to go there. I have some stats on that.
I'm sure.
It's actually an inverse correlation.
I'm just saying. I mean, would you go somewhere where you weren't sure whether people were packing or not? You see what I'm saying?
We've got Missouri, Ohio, Illinois.
Ah, yes, I know.
Yeah.
I'm talking more like the upper Midwest.
We've got.
I guess. You know what I mean? The upper Midwest seems to be a little less wild and woolly when it comes to that. I mean, that's just me.
Maybe if I can send you this chart, there's a huge
I'm
red
open
dot
to it.
That encompasses most of Minnesota and Wisconsin.
Hey, I'm open to learning new things. I'm not saying we don't. It was just brought to my attention. I'm not saying it's the factual or the truth, and I'm backpedaling so fast. My tires are on fire.
Highest number of mass shootings is in Illinois. Next highest is Missouri.
Yeah,
highest after that is Michigan, Minnesota, and Wisconsin.
Hold on. But those states you mentioned.
You must be kidding. That's hilarious.
No, I'm not.
But listen. Those states you just mentioned before Minnesota all suck. So do they really count?
No, they need to be. They get asterisks because they don't count.
Because you cannot count.
States with fewer gun laws have more gun deaths.
Listen. Here's the thing. You cannot count Illinois because of Chicago. Come on, that's Chirac.
Right. Most of it is.
All right, that's Chirac over there.
But the next is Missouri. What's going on there?
Yeah, Kansas City, Missouri used to be the highest murder rate ever in that city.
I've never been. Is it?
It's nasty. Oh man, I was in Kansas City before. It was, and then St. Louis too. Was very. When I've been there, is a kind of violent place. I mean, I'm just saying. But if
it's interesting. It's all over the map. The top 5 states for gun death fatalities are Florida, New York, Texas, Illinois, and California. So that's like the entire map.
Yeah, that is. But anyhow, I think though, maybe there'd be less mass shootings if everyone just carried a 45 in their hip. They were like, "Yep, I got one too."
My opinion has definitely changed.
And mine has as well. So that's why I can joke about it a little bit. But at the same token. Just craziness.
She did like defy all the stereotypes
and
statistics though.
I thought for sure it was a terrorist thing. I did because I profiled. I apologize. I really do. Because when they said her name, where she was from, my knee-jerk reaction was thinking tied to terrorism some way.
No,
but
I don't think that's wrong. I don't think that's wrong, though, Joel. I mean, my knee-jerk reaction when I heard that it was a woman, like I said, I thought it was a domestic thing just based on statistics. And that's what people, I think, don't understand about profiling, or people get upset because I do profiling. That's kind of what I do partially. And what people don't understand is that profiling is based on statistics of known events. So when I profiled her by saying, oh, this must be a relationship issue, I'm doing that because all the statistics are telling me that. And if you're, doing it based on her ethnicity, well, statistics are telling us that.
She definitely wasn't logging in.
No, it's not meant to be. It's not meant to put people down. Just like when I say that if a serial killer is, does a certain thing, I usually think that it's a white male because that's what statistics are telling me. It's not that I don't like white men.
Well, that is true, but then YouTube at the same time should be happy she evidently did not spend any time at the gun range.
Actually, she went to the gun range.
See, look at you. You're full of it tonight. No, I'm saying she missed.
She did. She visited the gun range the day before.
She wasn't very good at it. It wasn't like, she didn't really kill anybody or anything. She wasn't very impressive when it came to the body count. Let's just put it that way.
True. I'm very, very happy for that. I don't believe, other than herself, that there were any fatalities. I know somebody was wounded critically, though. I don't know.
Yeah. But anyhow, yet another mass shooting. I feel like a broken record at this point.
Is there another one?
No, but there will be in 10 minutes. Relax.
This one that we are talking about, it's a mass shooting, even though it wasn't a mass killing. Yeah, isn't it funny how our perspective has changed? If that incident had happened, say, 15 years ago, it would have been a big deal. Pre-Columbine, it would have been big deal. These days, what? Body count? None other than the shooter? Who cares? Besides, it's YouTube. They deserve it.
Well, they are evil. They are evil. No, I'm kidding. Of course, YouTube's not evil. We're on YouTube, and thank you, YouTube. But what I am saying is this, I'm getting numb to these mass shootings as a broadcaster. And I know you guys are too, and partially that's extremely sad.
It's very sad. That's my point.
And it makes you step back going, whoa, why are we joking about body count? I mean, why am I? That must mean I'm completely numb to what's going on. And that's a sad thing. And that's most of America at this point. That's just numb to it. It's just, oh, okay, another mass shooting, and so it's really lost some of its impact as well.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I mean, the fact that this was reported on quite widely when it was first happening. Like when it was first happening, it was all over the place. Today, when I went to look it up, thinking that all the news pieces would obviously be updated, most of them weren't.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't even care to report her name and identity because it didn't actually result in casualties? That's crazy.
Well, the old adage is if it, bleeds, it leads.
It leads, yeah. Well, she bled.
Yeah, she did, counts. But, that's the bad guy getting their comeuppance. So, I mean, that's hardly, anything.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know you're right. It's just very, very sad.
And seriously, I was only half kidding about the YouTube part. I mean, people think they're not human,
Well, YouTube, now, here's the problem with any social media, and YouTube is a social media. People don't understand that your First Amendment rights do not apply to these platforms, right?
Well, no, they're a private corporation.
It's just like if someone came in your house and started talking. You have every right to shut them up or tell them, hey, I want to hear that. And it's same thing there, and that's something I've been hearing a lot as well. YouTube is, they're not letting us talk about guns anymore. They take away our gun channels, and that's a violation of First Amendment. No, it's not. It's not a violation of First Amendment. They have every right. When you sign up...
It's not a public forum.
It is not a public forum. Same with Facebook. That's not a public forum either, technically. That is why... No,
you can't say things that are threatening, and you shouldn't be saying things that are hate speech. I mean...
I think some people have a confusion, though, on the First Amendment. The First Amendment is within public spaces. Mm-hmm. You can say what you want to say, I guess, whatever you really want to say, as long as within reason. It's not inciting like fire in a theater or something like that. But
right.
But it really only applies to public places. It does not apply to private companies. So then there's that.
Or private property.
Exactly.
But the internet is a public place.
But the website
YouTube is a private company.
Exactly. But the website is not public. That is a private owned company.
Its footprint on the public forum is, however, private.
Yes.
That's perhaps where the confusion comes in.
That is so true. Well, look at Facebook now. I mean, look at all the people, and I'm sure I'm one of them, and you're one of them, and everyone else is one of them, that our information has been compromised and has been used, and they are hemorrhaging users now and money.
That's what they say.
And they're taking a huge dive in what they're worth. But I had no idea that there are 2 billion Facebook users. I had no
Worldwide,
idea.
yeah.
Worldwide, that is just that is the, if that was a country, it would by far be like the biggest country anywhere.
Well, I think that half of them are scammers that have contacted me at some point.
Hey, Clarissa.
Half of them are bots.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly. Half of them are bots, and then the other half are just scammers. But yeah, it's become pretty bad. But anyhow, let's move along. We got what is it? What do we got? American Psycho to talk about? What's up with that?
Oh yeah. So there is a guy who was studying to be a pastor, and his wife was a Sunday school teacher, and he was already it's getting weird.
That's getting odd.
He was obsessed with the movie American Psycho.
This pastor was.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, his name is Matthew Phelps.
He was an aspiring pastor.
Right.
He was in a seminary.
Pastor. I'm not really sure. I know he was studying somewhere. I'm not sure how that works out for whatever religion he was, but he called 911. He said to the 911 operator that he woke up covered in blood, a knife on his bed, and his wife dead on the floor. She was stabbed 123 times.
Holy man!
And some of the stabbings were 4 inches deep or more.
Because 122 was not enough.
Oh, to make sure.
My God, how does somebody sleep stab someone 123 times?
Your arm would get tired.
You would have carpal tunnel so bad at the end. Oh,
having to switch back and forth.
You would. It would be switching around. You might have to get your feet involved.
You had to put it between your toes.
And was it just one knife? Because I'm actually surprised that one knife would make it through that much.
Well, if it's American-made blade, it might be able to do that. Yep.
So he does this, and he says to the 911 operator, I have blood all over me, and there's a bloody knife on the bed, and I think I did it. So they came to get him, and he said that he took a bunch of cold medicine, Coricidin, before he went to bed, and and he doesn't remember doing it. So he's saying that it's basically the Coricidin that made it happen.
All right, then. So he's going to blame cold medicine now.
Yes, and what's interesting about that is that, so the medicine Coricidin contains something that is called dextromethorphan, right? I can't say that very well. Dextromethorphan.
I'm glad you're spitting it out and not me, because I come out like
It is a drug that kids have used to get high before. Okay,
it does. I remember that. When they used to do robo-tripping, I remember that.
Exactly right. It's in Robitussin.
It is. Yeah.
It is a common cough suppressant, right? Because it suppresses the urge to cough. It's in cough medicines. But usually when you hear about kids tripping on this drug, it's in Delsym, Robitussin. It's also in Coricidin, and in very, very high doses. So we're talking, they chug at least half the bottle, right?
Oh, yeah.
Of a cough suppressant. I remember it well. We're talking like 1,500 milligrams or more. You can become psychotic. Now, the average dose in Coricidin is only 30 milligrams.
Wow. So, okay. Evidently, it didn't suppress his urge for murder.
I was going to say, he said he took more than he should have, but I don't think there was enough in an entire box of Coricidin to trigger psychotic effects. Personally, I know everybody's different, but give me a break.
He'd be chugging. He'd have empty bottles all over the floor of this stuff. There'd be cases ripped open, empty bottles around. Yeah.
Yeah, Coricidin is a pill, and it's only 30 milligrams per dose, so I've never heard of this drug causing a psychotic type state in anything less than 1,000 milligrams. And I mean, I suppose it's possible, but in any case, violent behavior has never been noted.
Oh, Clarissa, how well do you think he'll hold up in a court of law using that as a defense? Come on,
looking at his mugshot, I'm thinking not well.
Yeah, I was gonna say, come on, give us what you think. I think the guy is gonna fry like a side of bacon.
I can't even, that amount, oh God. I know in psychotic states or somebody like on PCP, that sort of a thing, you can become extremely violent, extremely, extremely violent. But I mean, a little bit more Coricidin than you should take. I can't.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. And plus, he's how old is he? Like, has he never had cold medicine before? Has he never had this effect before?
I'm looking for an age
gotta be in his
right
20s.
now. I'm not seeing anything. Oh, this is funny. He had a secret Instagram account called Marty Radical.
Yeah, and they said that it was full of pictures of Patrick Bateman, who is the character from American Psycho. So and it was pictures of himself dressed as Patrick Bateman.
Oh, so you like the movie American Psycho. And the movie wasn't even that good. I mean, it was all right, but would I put them in my top 10? No. I mean,
no,
it was all right.
I wouldn't either.
You know, I mean, for what it wasn't bad, but would I go crazy over it? No. Although when he dropped the chainsaw on the chick while she's running down the steps, that was pretty inventive.
Oh, gosh. I know. It was incredibly bloody. The only thing I did like about American Psycho, if you can call it like, is that I do think it was a pretty accurate portrayal of an actual psychopath.
I was going to ask you, how accurate was that movie to be?
Pretty good. I think it was pretty good. He was very narcissistic, very glib, very charming, and it was well done. It really was well done. I don't often see psychopaths portrayed like how I see them.
Yeah,
that movie comes the closest.
Huh.
Interesting. Sure. So if you want to see what like an actual psychopath is like, watch that. Don't watch some horror film. That's not what they're like.
Oh, I'll introduce you to some radio people that fit that bill. Don't worry. Don't see the movie. Come with me. I'll show you a few.
And what's so ironic is that movie, which is of course based on the book, is meant to be some sort of super dark comedy, a parody of that kind of person, and yet you're saying it's pretty spot-on depiction. So that really does show you how far off we are in our assumptions of what psychopaths are like.
Well, and to think, too, that they have no humor. That, you know what I mean? That there would never be anything funny. That they have no friends, no relationships, no humor. That you would never like them. That is all inaccurate. Yeah. It's just inaccurate. And a lot of people in the movie do actually like Patrick Bateman. He's going out with an attractive girl. It doesn't stop him from being promiscuous. You know, that's very consistent. But people are they want to see a movie where he's clearly a bad guy. He's a Hannibal Lecter type guy. No, most of them are actually like the Patrick Bateman character. Yeah,
cunning, cool, collected.
Everyone
likes him. You know what I mean?
Everybody likes him. Yeah, exactly. He can't stay faithful to anybody. He's not a good friend, but who cares? He's likable.
Yeah, that's right. We like him. He's pretty. Come on. We like the guy. Okay, we have to run the break, though. When we come back, we're going to have more of your true crime headlines with Dr. Clarissa Cole. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this.
Ranger Station, Ranger speaking.
Yeah, hi. I'd like to report a bear sighting.
Location.
My backyard.
Oh, your backyard. Try telling a bear that.
I did, and this bear talked back.
Talking bear, that's rich.
No, wait, it was Smokey Bear.
Smokey? Why didn't you say so?
I did say so.
Continue.
I was burning yard waste.
No, boy.
He told me to burn legally and responsibly, and to remember that if it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave.
And as always, he's right. You know, 9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans. That means 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented.
Yeah, I know that now.
Thanks to me.
Actually, thanks to Smokey.
As usual, the talking bear gets all the credit. Get your Smokey on. Always burn responsibly and contact your local fire department for open burning regulations. Because 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented. Brought to you by Smokey Bear, the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council. Learn more at SmokeyBear.com.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Northern Tool and Equipment.
I got a rather serious problem over here.
All right, what are we looking at?
Cranky mother-in-law asleep on the couch in the man cave.
Dear God.
It gets worse.
That's impossible.
She's passed out on the remote.
I stand corrected.
But what do I do?
Okay, I want you to grab a Torrin Big Red hydraulic bottle jack.
Okay.
Now you wedge that bad boy in under your mother-in-law and crank her up skyward.
It's working. And got the remote.
Great. Now grab that Torrin Big Red 2-ton folding shop crane and put that woman on wheels.
And away we go.
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
Well, Welcome back to After Hours AM, the Criminal Code. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me, as always,
Eric Olson.
And sometimes...
Dr. Clarissa Cole.
And your odds are 50-50.
They are. Sometimes a little bit better. Depends on whether she wants to be here or not. But anyhow, no, we're kidding, of course. We miss her. We miss you quite a bit when you're not here, by the way.
I miss you guys, too. I wish I had more time
and it becomes,
in my life.
It becomes a real situation where the inmates are running the asylum.
That's fun.
and then we go, and then we always end up saying WWCD.
What would Clarissa Cole do?
What would Clarissa do?
Exactly. What would she say during this?
So then we speculate on that for a while, and that kills some time.
Yep, it does. it fills at least 5 minutes anyway, and then we move on.
Well, she might say this because one time she said that.
Yeah,
but on the other hand, that other time she said this, so that may be more applicable.
Yeah, exactly. We try to.
I don't know.
We try to channel you the best we can. So and sometimes even try to talk in your voice. But hey, that's another story altogether. All right, we're hitting it back with the true crime headlines. Brought to you by thecriminalcode.com. Again, your one-stop shop for all things true crime. That's Dr. Clarissa Cole's own website, thecriminalcode.com.
All right. So I am liking there's a story. It's a very brief story out of Worcester, Massachusetts, but I had to say it anyway because this is like where you come prepared, but then your preparation kind of backfires on you.
Mm-hmm. I've had that happen.
Yeah, right? Like where you're like, oh my God, I'm going to nail this. And then something just goes wrong. So there's a thief that knew that there was a security camera. And he's like, I'm not going to let the security camera out me. I am going to block it. And so he used Play-Doh to put over the security camera.
Wow. So, how well that worked?
Play-Doh. Well, what happens when you press Play-Doh down onto something?
It gets thin.
It does get thin, but what else does it do? Like, think silly putty.
It copies whatever ink, if it's on top of ink, copies it.
Right, and if you press Play-Doh down with your fingers...
It leaves a fingerprint is what it does!
And that is exactly what happened.
Oh, my God. So the guy uses Play-Doh. I'm looking at this here.
It's a beautiful print.
It is a beautiful... There's no saying it's not his. I mean, if they can match it up. You don't get any better for prints than that one.
I'm starting to think that they should take fingerprints in Play-Doh because that is gorgeous.
That is gorgeous. That is. Actually, speaking of security cameras, I installed some in my own home recently.
Which is awesome. I used to have them in my old house. I have a security system now, too. It's a little bit less high-tech.
Oh, I got a good one with a 1 terabyte DVR. It also records to the cloud, and it also alerts me of motion on my smartphone. I can look at any time.
But can you talk?
Yes.
Can you talk through the camera?
Can.
That's my favorite. Like when somebody's walking up to the house and you just go like, hey, it scares the heck out of me.
I did that to the pizza guy today when he showed up. I'm like, hey, just drop it off. Leave it right there.
It scares the
looks around like, what? And he looks up. I'm like, yeah, I'm up here.
I used to talk to the camera.
No tip. No tip.
You know what we have in lieu of a camera or your hoity-toity audio system?
A guard cat?
We have a man-eating plant.
Ah, yes. Well, it's not a ficus then. We know that.
No, nobody expects that.
Nobody expects that.
It's a feed me, Seymour.
Feed me, Seymour. Feed me. Yep.
I'd be way more scared of that than a security.
Very effective, I'm telling you.
Oh, yes, little shop of horrors Seymour.
And when it blew, we could see the faces of our victims.
That's right. They're put in there forever. A little catalog of victims. So if anyone gets into it.
And we laugh at them.
You do. You point and laugh all at the same time. So, okay, this guy decides, this mental giant decides he's going to use Play-Doh, and they caught him because he left a print in the Play-Doh. What was he trying to steal that was so important to him that he didn't want to get caught?
I am not sure. It does not say. He was just trying. It was retail shoplifting, theft. No idea.
I'm reading it here. The guy is really not a genius. I mean, he really should have thought that one through.
I know. I've got a story about 2 other non-geniuses for you.
Sure, I love non-geniuses. They're the greatest things around.
So, although these guys have a little bit more of an excuse because they're actually minors, okay? They're teenagers.
There is no excuse for stupidity. I don't care if they're minors or not. Stupid.
Well, yeah, they're minors that are not old enough to drive. So and this does become important.
Okay.
They decided that they were going to steal a car. And they, like order a pizza and then run out to the car, which a lot of times these guys leave them running, right?
Yeah,
these kids
they do
run out to the car. They're masked too. They prepared. They wore like ski masks. They did. Yeah, they wore ski masks.
Oh, they look young.
So they're super young. They're 12 and 13. So they call the pizza guy. The pizza guy gets out with the pizza, leaves the car running. They run out from another entry, another door with ski masks on, jump in this guy's car, and then realize that it's a stick shift.
What is this thing?
I have read that, though, in Consumer Reports and stuff. The number one theft deterrent is, generally speaking, they will not touch him. Most thieves will not mess with a manual transmission vehicle.
And that's just sad. Come on, even I know how to do that.
Yeah, exactly. So they get in there, they're stymied. Damn it. How do I use this now? So they get in there, they can steal the car. Yeah.
Thwarted.
We're done now. We're done. We're sunk.
Penile device.
Exactly. What do we do with this? So the teens get in there, of course, and they're thinking, aha, we're going to steal this car, until they realize it's a 5-speed.
Yes. They got arrested. Deputies also found drug paraphernalia on one of the kids. So
those kids will get away with it anyway.
13.
I think 13. No, sorry, 13 and 14.
They're gonna get away with it anyway. That's why that one smile in his picture. He's like, psh,
oh, I was gonna say that. My guess is he's the one that also had the drug paraphernalia. I'm gonna go out on a limb.
Yeah,
Mr. Smirky face right there.
Yep.
If you see me tonight with an illegal smile, yes, remember that. You
will know what's happening.
My gosh, I mean that kid is way too. Speaking of potential psychopathy, he looks pretty glib right there.
Well, you know what? Criminals start young. You know what I mean? It's a training course that they have to go through. So.
A lot of them. Well, hopefully,
dead animals.
Hopefully, it won't be a story he's telling me 30 years from now if I'm still working in prison.
Sure, you'll show up and you'll be like, "Wait a minute, aren't you the kid from years ago that I reported on?" You are. You didn't get smarter.
Still smirking, you bastard.
Exactly. Stop smirking. Smirk at this, and you pepper spray them.
You and your illegal smile.
Yes, and you think of all these people that are just trying to stay out of prison. I mean, they're criminals, so they're not doing a great job, but they're trying to stay out of prison. There is somebody, a woman, who she is just fighting to get into prison.
She's not a Florida lady, is she?
No, she's from Staten Island.
Oh, okay. All right.
Which, I don't know why, but when I think Staten Island, I don't think of somebody trying to get into prison. I don't know why, I just don't.
Yeah, Staten Island, you don't really think about that.
Staten Island's kind of nice. It's pretty suburban.
It is. It's not bad.
Well, her name is Colleen Morris, and she is accused of repeatedly visiting Attica.
Attica.
Yes. And she has been, and I actually, since I work in the system out here, I've actually seen this happen to people before where they're banned from visiting.
Unless you're going to become an inmate.
What was she doing on her multiple visits?
Well, okay, so there's a lot of things that, believe it or not, there's a lot of things that can get you banned from visiting a prison. There's a lot of things you can do to get you banned. Really? I've seen it. I've seen a lot of it, a lot of weird things.
File case.
One is sexual behavior during visiting. Endangering children during visiting, multiple relationships with multiple inmates, just causing general overall issues. And she was accused of trying to smuggle in drugs, I think, on more than one occasion.
Oh, and probably a file and a cake.
Yeah, mostly drugs, I think. Yeah, looks like drugs. So.
Did she know people there, or was she just randomly delivering?
Randomly.
No. You have to know somebody, because in visiting, you have to have a lined up visit with someone.
You can't just randomly show up.
You can't just be like, let's bring this guy out.
I'm here to visit someone who wants drugs.
But think about this, though. We own these prisons. Can't we just walk up and get a guided tour? I mean, we own them after all.
Good luck with that.
You know what I'm saying? We own it. It's mine. I own it.
You can tour any facility out here in California.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know about Pelican Bay, actually. Maybe not. Level 4, I don't know if you can.
Yeah, hey, we own it. We own it. Give me the keys.
This is the thing. It's not very interesting. You know,
I know.
level 4s,
But what I'm saying, though, Clarissa, is we own it. It's ours.
Well, I'm guessing that's the thing. She was banned from ever going to any of these prisons, but what she did recently was she used her cousin's name to go back because she just can't stay away.
That is not very smart. They know what she looks like. You're not Tina. We know Tina, and you're not Tina.
So my guess is that she's actually gonna get to see prison. Maybe not that one.
Well, she'll not go to Attica, I'm sure, but she'll probably go.
She'll not go to Attica, but she will probably see the inside of some sort of prison. Yes, I mean, I'm surprised that she wasn't seeing the inside of some sort of prison before with smuggling drugs. But it is essentially up to the police whether they want to, pursue that.
I always wanted to visit Rikers Island just because it's a cool name, Rikers Island. Sounds like some movie, you know.
I've interviewed at quite a few different prisons. Attica looks interesting for sure. I don't know if it's a place I want to repeatedly go back to.
Attica. I remember that chant. It was from a movie, wasn't it? Wasn't there a riot there or something? The Attica State Prison? And then they were screaming Attica.
Oh, yes, of course. There was certainly a riot. Oh, terrible. It was many people were killed. That was
Attica right there. Well,
that was kind of the first big one, at least, of the modern era. I don't know. What was it? 60s or 70s?
Yeah, it was, I think in the 70s, I want to say, but 60s or 70s, you're right. You know what I mean? And then, of course, we are actually being hit up
71.
quite a bit.
I looked it up. It's the Attica Prison Rebellion, Prison Riot, 1971, based upon prisoners' demands for better living conditions and political rights. The uprising was one of the most well-known and significant in U.S. prison history.
Wow. Interesting. Now, this next one we're being requested to talk about, Clarissa. We're going to go off script a little bit.
Okay.
This is one listeners are wanting our opinion on, and this is, of course, one maybe you cannot weigh in on, so me and Eric will take point. The Sacramento shooting.
Yes.
Of course, that is a video that is all over the place, and of course, people want to hear about what we feel about that shooting. Oh, it's an ugly shooting. I think that, quite honestly, it could have been handled better. This is my own opinion, by the way. It could have been handled better. I mean, they whipped around a corner, and there's a guy on a cell phone, and they think a cell phone's a gun. I'm not sure what kind of training they give people in California what guns look like. But last time I looked, a cell phone is definitely not a gun. Not a gun, guys. Sorry, but does not shoot a projectile.
And weren't there, 20 shots fired?
Yeah, 20, in less than 5 seconds. Yeah.
20, and then, of course, I know, Clarissa, a little bit of a slippery slope for you because you work in that neck of the woods.
Yes.
So we will, kind of give what we feel. If you want to chime in, absolutely do so. But again, this is our opinion.
I can chime in with chime in with facts about it. Anything else, I probably can't. But it did happen in my It did happen in my backyard. Like, I was affected by the traffic from the protests.
Well, that's how close you were. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, Eric, what do you think after seeing the video? I mean, normally you're the voice of that level-headed reason.
Oh my goodness, I try to be, but what a cross to bear. It seemed unreasonable. It did not seem correct to me. I again, as we always add the caveat, it's really tough being a cop, and it's a matter of split-second decisions, and it's life or death, and you don't want it to be your death. I get every bit of that, and I'm sympathetic to that. But this situation it seemed ill-handled, way too much violence, way too quick to react. Why did they assume that person was the person that they were looking for? Yeah. I mean, on and on and on. They didn't identify him. Yeah. And, so and so forth.
Well, here's the thing, is some of these shots were in the back. You know what I mean? They were in the back. I mean, they weren't even...
he was like spun around or
something? They were not even... It was all in the back. And that's really what I find to be just deplorable, is that they were in the back. And, of course, the guy never had a gun. And another thing is, after looking at it, they were scared. These cops were scared because they knew they had botched. This is my own opinion, of course. Well, that's a lot of people's opinion, including law enforcement agents that I've contacted. You never generally speaking, turn off a body cam because that's state's evidence. That's not even your body cam you're wearing. That's our body cam.
Well, and it's just it looks so shady, right?
Exactly.
I mean, well, why?
Yeah.
Why did they do that? Why would you want to bring that question upon yourself unless there's a really, really good reason? Yeah. Submit direct information provided. He was shot 8 times, so they weren't even very good shots. If they 20 shots fired,
no, that's pretty bad.
Hit him 8 times,
yeah,
but
right?
7 of them, 7 were fatal, and 1 was in the side, and 7 in the back. So, man, there's just nothing about that doesn't smell bad. You know,
exactly. And here's the deal, though, is like the body cam thing. Really, really quickly, I reached out to law enforcement just so I can get a better clarification on the body cam protocol. Now, if you go into someone's home, a private residence, generally speaking, unless they have warrant or something like that, but if it's like a welfare check, they'll keep the body cam off because it's a private residence. But they were on the street talking. That is a public street. When they showed them, they were on a public street. They were not in a private residence. They had no right to turn that body cam off. That point,
and that's the other thing. When you're going into like doing official police business of any kind, I can't. To me, that part I will weigh in on because I feel so strongly about it, and I don't think anybody would ever contradict me as far as what the rules are. You don't turn it off.
No,
if you're trying to go after a suspect, you are on a chase, so to speak.
Yeah.
Stays on.
Yeah, exactly. When I talk to law enforcement, at least in my state, they say, like a welfare check or something where there's no criminal involved. It's just checking on somebody.
Correct.
They'll flip off the body cam because they want to protect their privacy because they have not committed a crime.
Correct.
They're just checking in. And that is another function that people don't forget, that a lot of times police work is checking on people, making sure we're okay. That kind of stuff. So, but yeah, when it's on the street and clearly an active shooting's gone on, and then they turn around and willfully turn off the body cams, knowing that what they're going to say next can only be left now to our imaginations, right? So what about that jury when they hit that jury and it gets that body cam footage and they're turning off body cams? If I was not jury, I would say, so, death penalty on the table here or what?
It's interesting. I think that there are a vast array of things that, potential charges. I think there really are. But it definitely raises a whole lot of questions regardless of what they're charged with. This has been sort of an epidemic across the country and that's the thing. I would never, I was reading up on it a little bit more. I guess they were sort of going after a suspect, but it was not him that they were after, right? And they did come onto his grandmother's property. So I would hate to think that if I was in my backyard, right, the cell phone in my hand or not, in my backyard of where I resided, I would hate to think that a couple of cops could just run into my backyard and shoot me.
Well, that's exactly it. Now, would we be, in any case like this, Clarissa, not even specific to this one, do you believe that anywhere else, any other situation, would this rise to the level, at the very least, a second-degree murder?
I mean...
They came around, they willfully fired on him. That's murder.
I don't know. I actually don't really know.
But then an attorney turns around and tells me it could turn into first degree because of tampering with the evidence.
Because of the body cameras?
Yep. Because they plotted it after the fact. How they're going to cover it up.
I was going to say they didn't turn the video off, just so people know they turned the audio off.
So they plotted it.
So the video was on, but the audio was off after another officer turned up. And that to me is just, that's a little crazy because, I'm the opposite. So, but then again, I tend to be a pretty strong rule follower. I'll put that out there, right? If something goes wrong, and believe me, I have definitely been involved in incidents in institutions where something has gone wrong, okay, on many different fronts. I want everybody to know exactly what I was thinking and doing. Mm-hmm. So if there was a recording device, I would want it on. I would want them to know.
Here's the problem, and Eric, I'm sure you'll agree with me, that This does not help their public relation cause doing things like this, okay?
Oh, God, not at all. It's terrible. It's the worst of it.
This gives the Monday morning quarterback people that look at this video, and it gives them even more reasons to rattle the sabers. Well, we got to do something. We got to defend ourselves against these people that are murdering our wives, children. I've already heard that all over the internet. We have to do something. We have to rise up.
Well, you know what's interesting about this, though, just to put some perspective on this entire situation, and again, I think I can do this without much of a problem. The reason that the police were called in is because somebody called because there had been windows broken in 3 vehicles in the area.
Yeah.
Nobody was hurt. Nobody was even injured. Certainly no one was killed. So why is lethal force being used against a person that basically committed vandalism?
Good question.
And why wasn't the first thing that they did is shout out in super cop voice using profanity, because that seems to be more effective, drop your effing phone!
Exactly.
Right? Or whatever they thought you were holding.
I've got something really novel for you. How about, hey, can we talk to you for a minute?
Well, exactly. Did you see anyone run through here?
Yeah.
No, I'm serious.
Yeah.
Like, if somebody is accused of breaking windows, okay, that's it. Breaking windows. I would like to think that a normal human response would be, oh, hey, there's somebody in their backyard. Hey, can we talk to you for a minute? Well, did you see anything?
Exactly. Did you see someone tear through here?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're after this guy for doing this. Did you see anyone come through? Can you be a proactive citizen, which maybe he would have been given that opportunity? The dude was on his phone.
And he lived with his grandmother, and he graduated from Sacramento High in 2013. He was on the football team. He was 22 years old. He lived in a rough neighborhood, but I don't know if he had a record. I'm not seeing any indication of that. And like I said, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I in my neighborhood here, which is mixed, I do live in a mixed race neighborhood, but the cops do show up here on occasion. It's not a terrible neighborhood. It's not a great neighborhood, right? Kind of in the middle. Things happen sometimes.
I bet they avoid your house, though, don't they? The cops? They're like, nope. That's a psychiatrist. We got to stay away.
No. But that's the thing, is that when cops have been called in, it's not uncommon for them to walk up to the back gate here and to call over and be like, hey, did you see anything on X, Y, or Z? And I would like to think that they don't just treat me that way, but they treat all of my neighbors that way. But the thing is, I don't know that they do.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean,
and that's what's horrible about it. Because I'm white.
Well,
yeah, my house doesn't look different than this person's house next door, but they're not white.
I mean, this is even worse than the Daniel Shaver shooting in the hallway of which I thought was, after watching the video, was within reason of
that
what
one
had
I understood.
happened.
That
I
one
got
understood.
it. I got it. But also
with normal police, that made sense to me. He kept approaching and would not keep his hands up. That's a problem.
But that sergeant should have realized the guy wasn't a freaking contortionist. You need to cross your legs, and you need to.
I know, right?
I mean,
and spin around.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, even that, quite honestly, was a little gray for my taste. But hey, that's my taste. I wasn't the jury.
A gun was reported, though, being stuck out the window of a public structure. It was breaking windows. That's it.
Yeah, so I don't know what's going to happen, but I sure hope something happens. But, we reported, Eric and I, this made both of our stomachs turn when there was that sheriff from down south, after the man was shot dead in cold blood by one of his deputies. I love this blank. And he got away with it.
What? Did he go to trial?
No. They found the DA said, nope, no wrongdoing. Over an open radio wave, he called for a murder of a man driving an
assassination. Literally an assassination.
We read it real time. We read it right from the news story that it came from. And the guy was driving 25 miles an hour on the side of the highway in an old Ford pickup with an expired or suspended license. And that got him killed. They did not want to bang up one of their cruisers to get the truck.
I would do a civil suit on that one faster than...
But no, what I'm saying, this is what people...
There's got to be one coming.
I hope there is.
This is what people are murmuring to me and other people in the media is, how long are we going to take this?
Well, no, and nobody should. But what I do want to say is that there have been a number of these, a good number of these, that have gone to trial, right?
Yeah.
Why are they never convicted? Why? I haven't seen one yet.
No,
granted, I haven't been sitting in on the trials, but it would send a really nice message if finally someone did get convicted. And by the way, they didn't get probation or time served or fired, 18 months.
Go away.
Fired without a pension. Give me a break. If it's murder, it's murder.
You know what it is? It's that we as a society are very, very leery about breaking or lessening that thin blue line. That's really what it comes down to. We're more afraid of what's out there potentially than we are of the police themselves. And I think part of that really has to be, which is extremely unfortunate, but part of it is socioeconomic. We're white upper middle class. Yeah. There are other people who I think are legitimately and honestly more afraid of the police than they are of fellow citizens.
No, of course they are. And like I said, I live in a mixed community, and I would venture to say that most of my neighbors probably are more afraid of the cops.
But what happened to the days?
And that's the thing is that but here's the weird part. I've lived in upper middle class white neighborhoods before. This is the closest I've ever been with my neighbors.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Living here.
Well, whatever happened?
Isn't that interesting?
That is very interesting.
I am not surprised.
But where is the officer friendly thing? What happened to that? Remember, we're kids. You don't be afraid of the police. Go talk to them. They're your friend. What happened to those days? Where do they go? Now they're shoving tanks.
Well, but the other thing too is that the cops also, just as a group, now have a feeling that people aren't watching out for them either, and that makes them. But
wait a minute. Wait. They chose this profession. This is a job they chose. And they work for us. And if they don't like working for us, they goddamn quit. Excuse my language.
I agree with you. But I'm saying that there is a different sense of, like, in the 1950s and 60s, I think, when you're all working together as a community and there's the McGruff the crime dog or whatever, and now everybody hates you. It's just a different
Well, my opinion is if you don't like your employer, quit. No one's making them work.
Don't do public service.
Yeah, sorry to get heated, but come on. I worked for employers I didn't like, so I quit. Same thing.
But like really, really, really quick, there was a cop one time that we called out because there was about to be a fight in the park between high school students. So a big group showed up, and we called the cop, and the cop got out of the car without any backup. And there were kids all around him, like high school kids, and he had a sidearm on him, not holding it, but it was in his holster. And so we went over to him and said, "Hey, you doing all right?" And he looked at us like we were approaching him menacingly. And it was funny to see the look on his face. And he said, "Wait, what?" And we said, "You didn't call for backup yet. We just want to make sure you're okay." No, and he looked like we just gave him $1 million. He couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I get that. And then helping the police, I'm all for that, and everybody should do their part. Hold on a second. We got a little bit of a mic technical issue here, but hold on. Bear with me, folks. Bear with me. There we go. Somewhat better there, but we're going to run a break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about drug smuggling and all things involved. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this.
Hi, Tom Bodette. If you can hear me, then you have an internet connection, which means you can do cool things online, like listen to streaming radio, obviously, or watch a video of a monkey washing a cat. Let your freak flag fly. Or you can book a room at a great price at Motel6.com. Isn't the internet wonderful? Everything you want right at your fingertips, and whoa, did not need to see that. I'm Tom Bodette for Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you.
Unexpected reactions to smart financial decisions brought to you by feedthepig.org.
Well, I finally did it. My student loan is totally paid off.
I can't believe it.
I can't believe it either. I paid more than the minimum each month, and soon enough, it was gone.
So you're just giving up?
Giving up on what?
The life of luxury. Egyptian cotton, caviar Thursdays, designer everything.
What are you talking about?
Our plan. What happened to winning the lottery and mastering the art of the perfect mimosa? Hosting galas, wearing enough jewelry to require a bodyguard, vacationing in the French Riviera, and then buying it.
I just thought maybe it was time to prepare for my future. Set some financial goals, make some smart investments, open a 401k.
Financial goals? Investments? A 401k? You are horrifying right now. Listen, if winning the lottery were easy, everyone would do it.
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Northern Tool and Equipment.
So me and the boys head out to tailgate today and find some other fans in our spot.
Well, it happens.
Cheering for the wrong team.
Oh, this is war.
Even worse, they've got this couch set up and everything.
A couch?
Yeah, it's sectional.
All right, first thing, don't ever use the word sectional again.
Done.
Second, I want you to grab a 4,700-pound tow chain with J-hook and grab hammer. Throw that on the back of your truck.
Got it.
Now you're going to Hail Mary the J-hook over the end of that couch. Time to find a better spot for your new friends.
That should do it.
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
Taking a family of 5 to the amusement park can cost a small fortune.
Oh, yeah. So to save some money, we thought, hey, let's bring the amusement park to us.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right, step right up, young man. Are you ready to ride the wacky waterfall?
That's just the bathtub with the shower head running.
Nope, it's the wacky waterfall.
It's the shower, Dad.
Waterfall.
Wacky.
There's an easier way to save. To get a free rate quote, go to geico.com. Then buy online, over the phone, or at your local Geico office.
Green light. Hey, girl. School zone. I'm getting hungry. Car changing lanes. You want to meet me for pizza? Stop sign. Intersection clear. Yeah, street. Pizza sounds good. Ballin Street? Girlin Street!
It's hard to concentrate on 2 things at once, like texting and driving. Stop the text, stop the wrecks. How will you stop texting and driving? Tell us at stoptextstopwrecks.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to After Hours AM, the Criminal Code. I'm your host, Joe Sturgis. Right along with me,
Eric Olson, and as may or may not be the case,
Dr. Clarissa Cole.
And we did track down that little audio faux pas. You know, I love a good Mackie mixer, but sometimes you got to switch that port around once in a while on your microphone. All your radio guys out there, got to move them once in a while. Otherwise, you get what they call flaking on your 1/4-inch connection. So, okay, there.
Well, you got to slap it, too.
You got to beat it up, you know what I mean? You got to pick a fight with it once in a while.
It's like women and dogs.
Oh, for goodness sake.
You are just looking for trouble tonight,
Yeah,
Eric.
you are looking for trouble.
That is a Russian proverb, and I am not Russian. It's not my fault.
Oh.
I am merely the conduit. I'm the bearer.
Oh, MayCay, I apologize.
I don't know. We just started here, and things are going wacko.
I apologize for my esteemed colleague, but anyhow, I will step aside and I will let Eric, he's the best intro man in the world, take over.
All right. Well, we are, first of all, talking about the book Buccaneer. Buccaneer is the ripping true account of the life and times of Jack Reed, an all-American boy turned drug smuggler, turned Robinson Crusoe, then prison inmate. For the first time, Jack Reed discloses his extraordinary, taboo journey as the high-flying international cocaine smuggler and personal pilot for Carlos Leder, partner to Pablo Escobar of the Medellin cartel. Reed flew drug runs for Leder, who handled transportation, while Colombian drug lord Escobar handled production and supply. Leder's cocaine transport empire was based at Norman's Cay, an out island in the Bahamas. When Jack was in his early 40s, he met Sheldon, a 14-year-old neighbor girl in Huntington Beach, California, and oh my, all hell broke loose from there. And we're going to talk about that. I'm not going to reveal any more of the tale, because that's what we're going to be talking about for the next astonishing, and I do mean amazing, hour. Well, who is joining us to discuss this? I will be very, very happy to tell you, MayCay Beeler.
Mayday.
Mayday.
Going down.
MayCay, yeah.
Mayday with a C.
Yeah. I'm sorry. MayCay. Here's what happened. This is really weird. When I put in your picture, which is astonishing, you are a lovely woman. It completely removed your bio. I can't believe this happened.
What?
All right, so you know what? While we were just talking, I reinserted your bio. MayCay Beeler is a spirited and vivacious American aviatrix, record-breaking pilot, award-winning television personality, award-winning Amazon best-selling author, veteran TV host, producer, journalist, speaker, spokesperson, and FAA Chief Flight Instructor, smitten with the wild blue yonder. MayCay has produced many TV features on aviation, including her personal accounts of flying with General Chuck Yeager. Her many adventures in television include initially learning to fly for a TV assignment, completing an air race classic, an all-women's transcontinental air race, and skydiving with the Navy SEALs. Welcome to the program, MayCay Beeler.
Thank you so much. I'm exhausted just hearing that. My goodness, but thank you so much. And, you know, I have to tell you, it's funny because you talked about General Chuck Yeager. This was many years ago. I interviewed him for a TV show, and he nicknamed me Mayday. So, yeah, my name is MayCay. And, so you
I picked up on the vibe. That's my excuse.
On that telepathy there. Pretty cool. Yeah.
I vibed you.
You did. Well, thank you for having me, everybody. I'm delighted to be here.
No, thank you for coming aboard and joining us for the next hour. And I know you have quite the tale to unravel. And you know, and what a book, by the way, and very, very good stuff. But, you know, how did you end up running into Jack?
Yeah, I mean, this is crazy. And, you know, I can talk all day and all night, so I'm going to try to keep it brief. Oh, my goodness. It all started with me as a pilot flying some neighbors down to Norman's Cay, the island in the Bahamas. And they told me this story that happened in the 80s that this couple, one North Carolina couple, they were pilots. They took their wives. Two couples went together down to the Bahamas for a treasure hunt. They used to have this tourist thing called a treasure hunt where folks would go down to different islands, you know, kind of like a fun vacation thing. And they went down in their airplane and they had engine trouble. And they found out that, well, this isn't going to end well, so we need to find a place to land. And they're over the water, over the Atlantic, in the Bahamas, and they look down and they see this island, and it happens to have a runway. So lucky them. They said, we're going to make our approach for the runway, and at the last minute, the engine quit, and now they're a glider gliding to the runway, and they end up crashing on the coral bank right there on the island, broken backs, broken jaws, injuries. And the next thing they know, they are being whisked away to the Bahamas in a hospital, or to Nassau, because they're on this little out island, Norman's Cay. So it's kind of like your deserted, not your vacation hotspot, so to speak. So they get whisked away to Nassau, to a hospital there, and authorities said to them, don't ask what's happening, but we're going to take you back to the States. Don't ask any questions. Long story short, Norman's Cay was the epicenter of the alleged largest drug operation at the time, supposedly responsible for 80% of the cocaine coming into the United States, courtesy of the Medellin cartel, Pablo Escobar and his associates. Carlos later was his associate that kind of set up his playground on the island and used that as a transshipment center, transporting cocaine from Colombia to the United States via Norman's Cay, because that way they could switch airplanes and they could make this more realistic for them rather than the long range from Colombia to the United States. Anyway, that's how I found out about it. I flew this couple back there 21 years later. They told me their story, and I said, you're kidding me. I was fascinated by it in the 80s. You know, I was a young, crazy teenager and didn't know anything about that, and I researched it. I personally flew them to Norman's Cay, and we looked for their lost airplane because it had crashed 21 years earlier, and brought somebody in to tell the story of what happened, a different author, and we found their lost airplane, and I was smitten with the story. And that led me to Jack.
Wow, what was
what an unlikely sequence of events.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you see everything in life prepares us for what's next. So here I had been a pilot, and I love the islands. So I love to fly, and I love the Bahamas. I love the islands. So and I'm a storyteller. I've been a reporter all my adult life, television personality, storyteller. So I was smitten by the story, and I was intrigued. And as a pilot, oh boy, I get to fly to the Bahamas. And oh boy, we get to look for this airplane. I mean, it was really amazing. And the fact that we found the airplane, because, you know, hurricanes and heat and sun and winds and all these years. And of course, it was a wreck, but we were able to find it. And I did a documentary about it. And for research for that, I was really wanting to get to Carlos later, the drug lord. And Carlos was the first drug lord extradited to the United States. But I couldn't reach out to him. He's in the WITSIT program. So I reached out to Jack Reed, who was his best friend and his co-defendant. And Jack lived on the island, and of course Carlos did too during their heyday. And I reached out to Jack, and I'll let you ask more questions because I can talk all day and all night, and I don't want you guys to fall asleep.
Well, no, I mean, it's so, like, I feel like you came about the relationship with Jack a bit more honestly than some people probably did. Do you know what I mean? Like, people that were kind of just trying to track him down for a salacious story. It's like you had your own interest in it aside from that. I mean, do you think he appreciated that, or was he really skeptical in the beginning?
Well, let me tell you, when I reached out to him, he was at FCI Memphis, Federal Correctional Institute in Memphis, and I just wrote him a letter, and I said, I'm a journalist, I'm a pilot, I'm researching my documentary called Return to Norman's Key, and I would like to ask you a few questions about it. And about 5 months passed, and I didn't hear from him. And it occurred to me, I never heard from this guy. It's weird. And then I get this letter from him, and I go, oh, my goodness, how odd is that? It's 5 months later. And I open the letter, and it says, Dear Miss Beeler, I'm so sorry that it's taken me this long to write you back. Forgive me. He was very polite, elderly gentleman. And he said, forgive me, but I have no interest in talking about my involvement with the cartel. Thank you very much, and have a nice day. And basically said, I'm an artist now. I'm a philosopher. I'm not interested in that, and I wish you well with your flying machines. And he signed it, Jack Reed, Mr. Reed. And I read it, and I go, okay, screw you. And I threw the letter down. Like, okay, screw you.
Yeah.
And then, whatever.
Yeah.
I hear exactly.
You.
That was my attitude. And then within seconds, and I swear to God, within seconds, I had this really strong feeling, and it's almost like your voice of reason said to me, you've got to write him back. And, you're sitting there, what? I'm going to write him back? This guy's a jerk. He doesn't want anything to do with me. And my intuition said, you have to write him back. So I picked up the letter that I threw on the floor.
I hate it when my inner voice is right.
Right?
I know that. It's like, who said that? Who said that? And you guys think I'm crazy, but you know what I'm talking about. Your intuition, I don't know what you call it, your inner voice of reason. And I wrote him back and I said, Mr. Reed, thank you so much for responding. And I totally respect the fact that you don't want to talk about your involvement with the cartel. However, I just I felt led to write you back. Don't ask me why.
And what?
So then he writes, so don't ask me why. I feel led to write you back. I have no interest in this man, okay? He's an elderly gentleman. He's in prison. He's not going to help me with the information I need for my story, so why am I writing him back? And then he writes back and he says, I just have a feeling about this, and so let's start a conversation. And so we started talking about flying, because obviously we're both pilots.
Yeah.
And I think that was the bond. And he opened up to me with just amazing stories. And over time, more and more stories, and I was fascinated, and my jaw dropped, and finally after many letters, hundreds of letters, went back and forth, and I finally said, gosh, may I be your biographer?
Sure.
He had so many great stories, they needed to be told, and he said, yes, but this is what I want you to do first. I have written my memoirs here in prison. He had been in prison for 20 years at that time. He was serving a life sentence. I've written my memoirs. I'm going to send them to you. You read them, and then we can take it from there. If you need to change it, expand on it, ask more questions, just read what I've written. So, okay. So he sent me his memoirs, and I sit down to read them. And after I read them, two things happened. One, I was shaking because I knew it would change my life. Mm-hmm. And the other thing was an incredible grief came over me that I couldn't explain or understand.
Interesting.
Yeah, an incredible grief.
Did you feel bad for him? I mean, because...
I can't. It was something that was intuitive.
Okay.
So if you read the book, you'll understand what it was. But I didn't know.
Hint, hint.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we want to go ahead and pick up the book, and that's Buccaneer.
You have to read the book to understand. Yes. Anyway, I wrote him back, and I said, well, but what about? I read your memoirs, loved them, but they weren't comprehensive. They weren't publishable. And I just said, but what happened to so and so? And what about this experience? And what did you do then? And so much was left out. That yes, they were fascinating. So he said, all right, go on and interview me. So we started interviewing. I started interviewing him so that I would fill in the slots, the spaces of what he left out. So it's a collaboration. The book is a collaboration of his memoirs written in prison in his hand and then the questions I asked him to fill in the blanks and to complete them. So this is what has happened with this story. So it is raw, it is bold, it is honest. There's no fluff to it. It's an easy read. It tells it like it is. And it is a true story. There's nothing in there that's embellished. There was no reason to embellish it. Everything was vetted to the best of my ability, interviewing people and going through court records. So this is just the real deal. It's not a Netflix Narcos, because Narcos is fascinating and it's wildly popular as it is, blurs fact with fiction. This book does not. Some people may not like it.
Well, here's the thing, though. I mean, he just didn't work for any kingpin. He worked for Pablo Escobar. I mean, we're not talking about a low-level individual here.
Right.
Did he ever feel, even having his memoirs published, did he ever feel in danger that maybe there's still people loyal out there to Pablo and they would not take very kindly to having his name included into writings like this?
Well, there was really a liaison. So really, he was associated with Carlos later. So Carlos Enrique later Rivas was the associate of Pablo Escobar. So Jack was hired by Carlos to find a drug smuggling plane and bring it from Southern California to Norman's Cay, and they became fast friends. So Jack was friends with Carlos. Carlos had the direct relationship with Pablo. Did Pablo come to the island? Yes. Did Jack meet Pablo? Yes. But Jack was a nonviolent gentleman, and he was quite the adventurer, and he really worked for Carlos. He didn't think of himself as working for Pablo or this so-called cartel. So,
and that's I wanted to point that out to people that I think that's an important detail about the idea of organized crime. Like, can you speak to how much of a cartel Jack actually felt it was?
Right. Now that's a very good point, because he didn't feel it was a cartel.
And why not? What was his idea of that?
He felt that even though there were certain players in it, all right, so it was a criminal continuing enterprise or whatever, but he didn't think of it as the cartel, and he really thought the cartel was created by the prosecutors and the media.
Right, and that's what I like what you said about that show, Narcos. That people often get, same with what I do, going into the prisons and talking to people, they seem to get this idea, I think, based a lot about what the media and prosecutors put out there to get a conviction, right? Because how do you do conspiracy or racketeering if there isn't an organization? But that's maybe not always what it is. I mean, reading the book, it kind of felt like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, in some ways that Jack's life had sort of almost like a leisurely quality to it sometimes?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely, it did. And I did ask him, well, were you afraid? Were you scared at times? And especially this young girlfriend that had this amazing adventure with him. And, being a mature person at this age in my life, I look back for her and I worried for her. And I said, was she worried or concerned? He said, no, she had a great life. She had anything she wanted. She lived on the island with him. She traveled with him. He gave her everything she wanted. She came from a horrible, broken type home situation. So he was like a sugar daddy to her and gave her whatever she wanted. And she wasn't in danger. I said, well, was she aware of what was going on? He said, yeah, but, she was young.
Yeah.
They were having fun in the sun.
So would it be fair to say that the governments that were seeking convictions are the ones that created, in essence, what we know now is I guess, the cartels? I mean, is that really where he was going with that?
I would say that would be true regarding Carlos and Jack's involvement with it. I can't speak for Pablo and his guys, because we know Pablo was a monster. I mean, everybody knows that. What went on Norman's Cay, according to my research, because I wasn't there, but according to the people that I've interviewed who were there and who were players there, it was not a violent place the way the government portrayed it to be. Absolutely not. There's so much crap out there. And because the stories are more interesting than the truth, right? It's been fictionalized, and there's been so much romanticizing of it and so much violence put into it that wasn't even there, that nobody knows what's true anymore. Writers put certain things out there. Authors put certain things out there. So when I initially went to research it, I believed what I read. Oh my gosh! Oh my god! You know. And it wasn't until years later when I researched it and I got to the people that I needed to get to that I found out, no. That's probably not the way it happened. I wasn't there, but just from my research, a lot of it was made up. It was fabricated so that the prosecutor could serve his own personal needs. And it's complicated, folks.
Mm-hmm. It is. I always say this too, and not so much in other types of crimes, but in drugs in particular, in where the government ends and where criminals begin, where the police end and the criminals begin. Like I always say that even when it is a completely non-consensual thing that occurs, there is still a relationship between right and wrong, victim and perpetrator, and nothing is ever very clear cut. And I think that's why trial in general is very difficult. Because they're trying to frame somebody as all bad so that the jury does the right thing, right? He has to be, in Pablo Escobar, it's true, right? But
and then he has to be a monster. People were bribed to say certain things. So they said, okay, you're a smuggler, and do you know who Jack Reed is? No, you don't, but you're going to say you did because you also flew drugs for Carlos later. And so if you tell us such and such, then you'll get immunity.
Yeah.
Or if you tell us such and such, we'll give you a lighter sentence. So people just sang like canaries. They ratted. Everybody ratted. Who knows? Maybe I would have ratted. Maybe you would have ratted. We don't know what we would have done.
What kind of pressure involved? You're absolutely correct. I mean, we don't know what kind of pressures they put on. I mean, what is the DEA's involvement in drugs? Do they set the prices? I mean, are they kind of their own kingpin? I've heard that rumor before.
Yeah. Well, we know there's a lot of corruption, and we don't even really, I don't think people want to know. I've just learned more than I ever dreamed I'd learn. I know more than I want to know. And it's just very, very complicated, and a lot of unfair stuff goes on. And, a lot of people say, well, who cares? These people were jerks. They were drug smugglers, and anyone who does that is terrible. Yeah, it's true. I mean, we're not condoning what they did. It's not right to do something that's going to hurt people. They didn't look at it in that way, though. And we can talk about that also, how they viewed what they were doing. But it's easy to say that, throw them away to jail, let them rot in jail for the rest of their life. Screw them. It's easy to say that, especially if you have a loved one that was affected by cocaine or drugs or something. Of course, we can understand that. But there's a whole different side to it that we do know, especially this was the longest, most publicized drug trial in U.S. history, and a lot of what went on was hype. And it was fictionalized and made up. And to this day, because there's so much junk out there written about it, and then shows like Narcos, which, yes, is wildly popular, but no one knows what the truth is anymore because there's so many stories out there.
Well, that's just it. I mean, how do you separate the truth from myth at this point? Because of all the different truths, and use quotations, out there.
Yeah.
And there's very little... Yeah, go ahead, please.
And a lot of the players are dead now, or they're dying. It's George Young, if you're familiar with George Young from the movie Blow, that Johnny Depp portrayed him years ago. He's probably the most famous drug smuggler in pop culture. He knows the truth. I've talked with him many times about the truth of Carlos later and what went on that island, and he says he wasn't violent.
Yeah.
I mean, and this book is about how the government said how violent the man was. And this man is in prison, and he has a family. And will he ever see the light of day? I don't know. And I know listeners are thinking, well, who cares if he ever does? He's a jerk. He's a drug lord. And I get that too. But people do evolve. People do pay do the time.
But
and
also,
evolve. And
the media has to demonize somebody. You see what I'm saying? They got to have the bad guy. If they don't want him to be a sympathetic soul, because then, of course, they want them, like you said, to be all bad. I mean, these are bad people. I mean, they want that PR out there.
But it also comes down. It also comes down to number. I mean, this is going to sound really weird, but like sheer number of people affected. So when you look at things like drugs, like most people, I would say the majority of the American populace knows somebody, right, who has been addicted, who has been really terribly affected by drugs. So most people are going to look at that drug smuggler, think of that personal connection, and get angry right away, as opposed to something like murder or even rape. As much as people don't talk about it, it does affect more than we think. But people are going to see the drug connection and immediately vilify it based on their own response to it. And I do think that prosecutors use that to their advantage.
Absolutely, and rightly so, because if you were affected by it personally, your heart would be broken too.
Sure.
And you would hate those people. So, in writing this book, people have said to me, "Oh, how could you write a book? That man broke the law. He broke the law." Well, yeah, I'm not condoning what he did. I'm just a storyteller. And it's a fascinating story, what led this all-American boy to go down this path. And then what happened to him. It's not only an amazing adventure story, with fun in the sun and orgies and drugs and a wonderful adventurous lifestyle, but it's what happens to him, how he gets caught.
Yeah.
And then what happens to him in prison, then what happens to him. You can't make this stuff up, folks.
No, exactly.
You can't make it up.
Exactly. We got to run a break, though, MayCay. When we come back, we're going to get into that cast of characters and how things spiraled through and how things really were on the island. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this.
Northern Tool and Equipment.
So Daddy's little girl thinks she's going to prom tonight with some punk who calls himself Snake.
Yeah, they grow up so fast.
Well, not if I can help it, they don't.
Okay, here's what you do. When that kid shows up, Dad's going to be doing a few chores around the house.
Huh?
It doesn't matter the chore. What's important is that it requires the use of a 60cc gas-powered chainsaw and possibly a mask.
I think it's showtime.
He's here. Dad, I want you to meet...
All right, let her rip.
What's that, honey? Hi, Snake. Great to meet you. But wait, where are you going?
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
Ranger Station, Ranger speaking.
Yeah, hi. I'd like to report a bear sighting.
Location.
My backyard.
Oh, your backyard.
Try telling a bear that.
I did, and this bear talked back.
Talking bear, that's rich.
No, wait, it was Smokey Bear.
Smokey.
Why didn't you say so?
I did say so.
Continue.
I was burning yard waste.
No, boy.
He told me to burn legally and responsibly, and to remember that if it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave.
And as always, he's right. 9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans. That means 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented.
Yeah, I know that now.
Thanks to me.
Actually, thanks to Smokey.
As usual, the talking bear gets all the credit. Get your Smokey on. Always burn responsibly and contact your local fire department for open burning regulations. Because 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented. Brought to you by Smokey Bear, the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council. Learn more at smokeybear.com.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
And welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joe Sturgis. Right along with me,
Eric Olson and
Dr. Clarissa Cole.
And boy, are we having a great discussion. MayCay, thank you so much for coming on the show. Very interesting
thank you.
stuff.
This is fascinating. Thank you.
Of course, if you guys want to get the book, and you should get the book, Amazon has got it right now. If you got a Kindle, if you want to get a hardback, softback, any way you want it, Buccaneer's the name. Check the book out. I'm sure it's also available at every other outlet as well, Barnes & Noble, everything else. So
right.
Absolutely. But Amazon, I love Amazon, so I always go to Amazon. And as long as you're there, you can bundle in other books too. That's the beautiful part about Amazon. Well, that being said,
Right.
MayCay, give us a feel for the kind of cast of characters. I mean, were they all very, according to Jack, were they all very flamboyant, or were they lay low kind of people, or they like what you see in the movies, very over the top? What were they like?
Right. Well, Carlos Slater, his best friend, the drug lord, very handsome Latino gentleman and very charismatic. So yes, he said that Carlos and those that have friends of his all tell me he was very charismatic. The cast of characters that hung out with them were charismatic as well. They were all young, fun-loving adventurers. They loved to go diving and fishing, very, very active on the island. Jack was kind of an introvert, very quiet, but a handsome man. loved to fly, and really was a hermit, just kind of liked to stay to himself, and ended up in Panama, living in a hut with his girlfriend. So he had quite an interesting life, and they traveled everywhere. But the cast of characters, I'm going to say they were a bit flamboyant for sure. And, George Young talks about all the orgies they had on the island. Jack was very sexual. He was very lusty. He made that quite clear. That may bother some people, but that's the way he was. He liked young girls. He did. He liked young girls, but he ended up with this one particular young girl who he had just the adventure of a lifetime, and we call her Sheldon. And she's who we talk about in the book, and she just came from a broken family. Her mother had been married 8 times and did drugs and hung out with smugglers and dealers, and that's how she met Jack. And then Jack met Sheldon when she was only 14, and he was smitten, and they were together 11 years. So the book kind of talks about that and their adventures and where they go. But on the island, were the characters flamboyant? I'm going to say, yes, they were. And now, years later, those that are still with us have evolved and have matured. Let's just put it that way.
You mean they've gotten old?
As they should.
I mean, they've aged out of the lifestyle, is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, they've aged out of the lifestyle, and because some of them had to. They had to. And, one that I was speaking to, she said she saw where this was going, and it wasn't going well because there were so many drugs available that, even though they were careful that they wouldn't become addicted, they still, with so much of a lifestyle, you can only do those drugs so long. And then could you imagine if you did those drugs all these years and now you're 60, 70, 80?
Yeah.
I mean,
well, you probably wouldn't be 60, 70
yes.
or 80.
Well, that's why you got to chew the leaves like the locals.
Well, look at George Young, though. Look at George Young. He's he's in his 70s and he's still with us.
I was going to say, like Mick Jagger, too. Mick Jagger did tons of...
But
that guy's more energy than I do.
Right?
Yes, sure.
But But look at them. I mean, they've, yes.
Well, popular culture.
I have kind of a side question, if I might drop
that.
Sure.
Side question. Back. Here we go.
I'd really love to hear from your mouth.
I'm scared.
I would because you are so articulate and passionate. I'd love to hear about the allure of flying, and of not just flying, but piloting.
Gosh.
And then that's how you connected with him. It seems very clear to me that was your at least initial real fundamental contact, was that love of flight. So if you can tell us a little bit about that.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, do you really want to know? Because it's just so amazing and it's just incredible. So I learned to fly for a television assignment many years ago. There was a show called PM Magazine. It was a weeknight show at 7:30, and it was nationally syndicated, and most cities had their own co-hosts. And I learned to fly for a television assignment, and it was free to a certain point if I documented it on my TV show. And the whole point of it was that the viewers would watch and say, well, look at there, MayCay Beeler's flying an airplane. Well, good God, if she can do it, I can do it. That was the whole point. Yes. Oh, yes, the girl next door. Well, MayCay Beeler's, look, George, look over here, MayCay's on the TV, and she's flying an airplane. And it was just to get...
That wasn't necessarily... That didn't happen to be WATE TV, would it be?
Yes.
I'm watching a video right now of you flying around on the old YouTubes, happy as a clam. So for WATE TV, ABC affiliate,
right.
And so
there was the ABC affiliate at the time, yes, and it changed my life. I was scared to death at first. I'm going to be honest. But after the first few flights, I just got the aviation bug. And every pilot knows about the aviation bug. You get bit by it, it gets in your blood. And it is an amazing sense of freedom. Plus, it's a personal challenge to be your personal best, to master the airplane, being one with the airplane. Yeah. So it's been over 30 years now, and it is my heart. I love it. I love teaching people to fly. I love taking people flying. I have the Diva Flight Experience. It's my signature flight program where I put women at the flight controls in the pilot seat, empowering women. Clarissa, I'd love to take you with me.
That would be amazing.
It's not just for gals who want to be airline pilots, and we do need airline pilots. We have this huge shortage right now, and we need more women. This is a huge thing. I'm a champion of women in aviation now, empowering women and letting them know, come on, get in the cockpit. We need more estrogen in the cockpit. Well, we do. We need more estrogen. Yeah, boys, move over.
That's a sentence that I want to hear repeated over.
Right?
We need more estrogen in the cockpit.
We do. And you know, guys are great because, you know, aviation is a boys' club. So it's always been a boys' club. Only 5% of the pilot population is female. It used to be 6%. Now I hear it's only 5%. And only 1% of the world's population will ever have their hands on the flight controls.
Interesting. So it's a small group of people.
That's how rare it is. A very small group of people. And we are just so blessed. So my mission is to spread the love and spread the joy and let people know that flying is a very empowering, whether it be a pastime or an introductory flight, a bucket list flight, or for a career or a hobby. It is awesome. And yeah, it was my passion, I think, that Jack and I bonded with. Although he's told me, he said, you know, I've never had the passion you had. For me, it was a job. He did tell me that. He said for him it was a job. And for me, he knew that it was passion. And he worried about me being a flight instructor. He worried about me. Isn't that funny?
Wow, you guys really formed this tight bond together.
Well, I don't know. You know, I'm this biographer. When you're a biographer, they tell you everything.
Yeah.
He told me everything. He said, I will hold nothing back.
Did you feel a little I don't know, a little apprehensive? I mean, because I'm sure that kind of lifestyle leads to other crimes as well. I mean, it's just not flying airplanes. I'm sure there were some ugly moments, too.
Well, I think the ugly moments that he had, as far as he was an old-timey outlaw. That's what one of his defense attorneys told me. He described him as an old-timey outlaw because he never snitched. But an old-timey outlaw, like he did go to Terminal Island. He was in jail earlier before the smuggling days. He was counterfeiting money. So I think that for him, that's probably the worst that it got. He was nonviolent as far as I know.
Yeah.
And that those closest to him told me that as well. He had a very gentle soul, very spiritual man. Very gentle soul. I didn't know him back in the day, okay? I can't speak for that, but he had no reason to lie to me or to hide anything. He had no reason to. So he was nonviolent. He was a pacifist. He didn't, I believe probably had a gun, and I don't know how much he witnessed violence-wise, but those closest to him and the biggest players in this story told me that really he was quite naive. That he
you have to have those people too. I think people don't maybe realize that if it's a criminal enterprise, you have to have those solid people with calm personalities.
Well, sure.
I mean, he was flying a plane, for goodness sake. He couldn't be all crazy.
Right.
You know, because it is dangerous. Like that was one specific thing I wanted to ask you because I don't know why, I was just oddly fascinated by this part of the book when he was talking about specifically what it took to get from the Key to Columbia and back. And he was talking about using like a bladder for fuel. And I don't understand that kind of stuff. Can you maybe sort of explain?
He's putting extended fuel tanks in the airplane. So the airplane comes with its own fuel tanks.
Right.
But if he can get a bladder, this like rubber bladder that he can fill with fuel and then connect it to the fuel tanks and to the engine, then it's like adding a fuel tank. That's all that meant. It's like adding a fuel tank, and provided that the airplane was not overweight or out of center of gravity. So pilots know what that means. The airplane can't weigh too much or it's not going to fly right, and it's not going to fly the way it was designed to. And if it's not within the proper center of gravity, it's not going to fly the way it was designed to either. And it could be too nose heavy or tail heavy and crash.
And so
is that dangerous, though?
Say again?
Is that dangerous, though, to have more fuel just kind of hanging out?
Well, he was within carrying that fuel. He had to be careful what other weight he put in the airplane. So he could only carry so many kilos of cocaine. It was just him and Carlos. Okay?
Gotcha. Okay.
Or it was just him. Right. So he would take the seats out and then put this bladder in. So no, it did have to be within the proper weight, of course. Otherwise, he would have ended up in the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it takes a lot of smarts to do this right, and they probably pushed it a little bit, more than likely. But more than likely.
Well, now,
yeah, you have to
was that done to avoid having to refuel at any point? So it was just a straight shot there and back?
Yes. That's exactly right.
That makes sense, because it cuts down chance of being caught.
they can go down there and get fuel and stop somewhere because there's no contraband aboard the airplane.
Yeah.
So we can stop in Turks and Caicos, or we can stop in Haiti or whatever and get some fuel, but we can't stop coming home because we've got a plane full of cocaine. Yeah. So that was why. And then they would fly from Columbia to Norman's Key, and they'd offload it and then put it on smaller aircraft and bring those to the States.
What an operation. Now, just to be clear, that he was convicted of, what was it, conspiracy to distribute cocaine, am I correct? And operated a continuing criminal enterprise.
Exactly.
Is what prosecutors said. So,
and they thought that the prosecutors made him sound like he was like a partner. And hell no. He says, I was not a partner. He said, I just flew the plane. And he said, I was a handyman on the island.
Yeah.
When Carlos, and that's what he said. I swear to God. He said when Carlos was in there, he'd fix stuff, and he had his own home on the island, and he'd fix that up. But he would run errands. He'd fly over to Nassau and get supplies for the island. And no, he was not. He didn't have this. He wasn't savvy to this stuff with Pablo and these other folks, but they made him out to be that way. The prosecutors thought that he would be the star witness against Carlos later. Mm-hmm. And they said, you're going to tell us what we want. And he didn't. So they said, all right, screw you. You know, you've got a life sentence.
Yeah, and they really...
Nonviolent offender.
Yeah, he was given 2 consecutive life terms. And fined $2 million.
Right. So they came back and with more evidence, and they tried him twice. Mm-hmm. And they said, okay, we're going to try you twice, which, of course, is illegal. And that was later vacated. But in trying him twice, initially it was 15 years, for what he was convicted of. But then when they found more evidence that they were going to convict him twice for the same crime, which later was vacated, they said, all right, same crime, but guess what? Yeah, you know, the punishment was 15 years before, but now it's life.
See, now that's just not fair.
Well, it's not legal. It's not legal. So they said, all right, that first time we convicted you, that 15 years, we're going to get rid of that. Now it's life. And now with this new evidence, we're calling it life again. And $2 million. But one of those got vacated, so because it was illegal. But the point is that we do know that the government can do what the government wants.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know.
I mean, we all know that. But it was because he wouldn't snitch. The man was nonviolent. The man never was even in a fist fight.
It's like that old joke, don't steal because the government hates competition. Right. Yeah, you know, and here even in prison, those closest to him told me that he was so nonviolent, it wasn't even funny. Yeah.
It just, you know, but he was loyal to Carlos. And it's just fascinating to read. I just think his story is fascinating. Mm-hmm. And people think, well, he...
Oh, go ahead. I was going to say, but it's amazing to me that a nonviolent offender would have gotten 2 life sentences. I mean, how is that serving the public? And if I'm not mistaken, Clarissa, when they send someone to jail, it's all about the public interest, right? The community interest, right? So, I mean, how does that serve the community, putting a non-violent offender, taking up space that other violent offenders could have been using?
Well, you know, honestly, I don't know because I don't deal with nonviolent guys.
I was going to say, I know. You never spoken to a guy that wasn't violent. But
what year was the conviction?
It was 87.
Yeah, see, so that's the problem.
War on drugs,
in 1987.
War on drugs.
The height of that.
I mean, it was the worst possible time for him to get busted.
Was that the Nancy Reagan just say no era?
Yes.
Oh,
yes, it was.
Yes, so there's part of the reason, and you know, cocaine specifically came really, really to be seen as an extremely dangerous drug because people felt fooled. Because remember, early on, Coca-Cola had cocaine in it. You know?
Lots of things.
So the whole first half, you know, or the first third of the 20th century. You know, you had this very opposite approach, this view of cocaine, and then it gradually shifted over. You know, the government turned on it, put it on the list, and then, you know, there really did start to be a lot of problems. People, you remember Len Bias, the basketball player, just dropping dead. I mean, it was really bad. So that was the time, and that was so for him, it really was kind of a perfect storm of unfortunate events that led to that. I think if he had been tried in any other era, it probably would have come out better. There probably would have been a little more reason to it, but they were able to ram it through just because of the tenor of the times, as they say.
But did he ever feel railroaded? Did he ever?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He did, and even Carlos later was. Even his co-defendant, the drug lord, was.
Yeah.
If you could see the research, if you could see the papers that I've seen, it's sickening.
It was done for
sickening.
And that's the thing. It's a political, because it's more political statement.
Totally political.
And it's like the feds. I mean, in my opinion, anyway, the feds have a lot more leeway about sentencing and things like that in the state level. It's very circumscribed. This is what you can get for X, Y, and Z, and it shouldn't be more than that. But I know that the feds take liberties or have.
But again, had Jack snitched, none of that would have happened. He would have been a free man. But he didn't snitch. He just wouldn't do it. And that's why in his book, he says, I'm no goddamn rat.
Yeah.
I'm a hedonist. I'm one hell of a great drug smuggler, but I'm no rat.
Yeah.
And he was proud that he was never caught. He says, I was never caught in the act of smuggling. I'm in jail, or I went to jail because I was snitched on by other people. I was told on by other people, and that's the most dangerous part of any criminal enterprise.
You got to admire that,
people who are going to turn on you.
You got to admire his intestinal fortitude and his code of ethics in some ways. You know what I mean? That I'm not going to snitch no matter what. I will take the consequences. I mean, he could have become a national hero had he just cooperated. They would have said, oh, what a great guy. He worked in cahoots with us, and we got this whole thing busted open thanks to you, Jack Reed. But he went the other way, and he held his guns.
He went the other way, and he paid dearly for it.
Yeah.
He paid dearly, and people close to him, some people close to him couldn't understand that. And I said, it's because you don't know Jack. So I have a different view of Jack because I saw a different side of him as his biographer, looking at his life and his story. But you could look at it and go, well, what an idiot you were. Were you stupid? All you had to do was squeal on him, and you could have been a free man like everyone else, who snitched. And again, I'm not criticizing. I may have done the same thing. Maybe you would have too, right? It's your life. I want to get out of here. And, there was a player that was involved with it who was going to be thrown in jail, and she was part of the program, and they were going to take her son away from her, her young son. So she had to snitch on Jack, and it broke her heart. And this is in the book, and Jack understood. He understood. But she had to. We're going to take your son away if you don't tell us what your role was in this enterprise.
Yeah, and that might be the only forgivable reason to snitch.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Where they wouldn't, because the old saying, snitches get stitches or snitches get ditches. I've heard a million of those. But that might be the only forgivable reason would be to protect her child in their eyes.
Of course. And I totally understand that. There's so many human stories behind all of this. People just don't understand. And Clarissa, you know this. People that are behind bars are human beings. And they have stories and families, and yes, some are monsters, of course. And of course, there's no excuse for smuggling drugs. It does hurt people. But to look at why they did it and how they saw it through their eyes, it's just interesting. It's absolutely interesting.
People also don't understand that, when you're involved in a criminal enterprise like that, it's not like you're thinking of them like, this is my business partner. We go to work together. I mean, it's like a family after a while, isn't it?
Yes.
Those are your people. And it's
right.
The Chicago mob was no different then. I mean, that was the same thing, same mentality.
Right. And I have a good friend, a fellow author who's a very successful mafia writer. And he loves that stuff, and he's a great writer. But it's different. I say to him, it's different. The guys that I dealt with were hedonists. It was more adventure lovers. We're in it for the adventure. They were buccaneers. That's why Jack has that nickname. The real title of the book is Buccaneer, The Provocative Odyssey of Jack Reed, Adventurer, Drug Smuggler, and Pilot Extraordinaire. But these folks, as part of this cartel, quote unquote, that Jack was involved with, and Carlos, they were adventurers. They were pirates. Whereas the American mafia and the Italian mafia, they were cold-blooded killers.
Oh yeah, they were.
Right, they were. And so I can't. With my friend Christian and with his books, I go, I'm a nonviolent person. I'm a sensitive soul. I can't relate to that. But I can read your books and be fascinated. But they're kind of different cats. You see, they're different cats. But Pablo, of course, we all know was very violent.
Yeah.
So Carlos Leder's association with Pablo Escobar, it's the association that I think hurt him more than anything. And Jack Reed also.
Yeah.
You know, guilt by association. Well, one is a monster, so you must be a monster. You have to tell you something. I was on Norman's Key helping folks with with another documentary that they were doing. I won't name it because I don't want to incriminate anybody, but the producer said to me, "Oh, Carlos Leder was a murderer, and he did this, that, and the other." And I said, "No, he wasn't. There's no evidence of that. He was not tried for that. There's no evidence of that." And the producer said to me, "Doesn't matter. Just because there's no evidence of it doesn't mean he's not a murderer. I'm going to call him a murderer."
Yeah. Well, like you said, Pablo Escobar.
Oh my God.
He was uber violent.
And this was right, but this was for Carlos Leder. We were talking about Carlos Leder on this island, and we were doing he was doing the documentary on Carlos Leder. When he told me that, I lost all respect. I thought at least try to find the truth. At least say, well, the man was never convicted of anything like that. But there are stories that authors have written that perhaps he was violent, but there was no proof. But he didn't care that there was no proof.
You know, several people, though, have said that the government could have, and when I say they knew all about Pablo. They let him go as long as they let him go. They could have gone and stormed the island. They could have done a lot of things, and they did eventually do just that. And they allowed them to conduct business. They allowed all these things to happen. So the government, the DEA, that kind of stuff might be partly to blame there. So
that's not uncommon either.
Yeah.
That happens in the prison setting all the time as well. It's not that they don't know that there's gang activity like the Mexican mafia, which speaking of organized crime and deadly crime, that's one of them. And they're extremely active in the prisons out here, but a lot of times you let certain things go because you're trying to get to, in this case it would be Pablo Escobar, you're trying to get to somebody at the top, and without letting things go, you're not going to get there. You're not going to get the evidence you need.
And of course, the Bahamians were being paid off.
Yeah.
And the government, our folks were getting what they wanted also. It just got to the point where it was so obvious that it couldn't be hidden anymore.
Exactly. They had to act at that point.
Right. So Norman Solomon, I flew down to the Bahamas to interview him, Minister of Parliament in the Bahamas, and he said to me, "Oh yeah, everybody knew what was going on." Yeah. He said, "We could have stopped it. We could have stopped it just by digging ditches in their runway on Norman's Key." That's all we had to do. But it went on because everyone was corrupt. But then it got to the point where everyone knew, we got to stop this.
Sure.
Because people were looking bad. And they're...
Yeah, absolutely. MayCay, I hate to say this, though. Unfortunately, we're at the end of the show. We have like a minute left. So why don't you tell everyone how they can get the book and your website, of course, where they can visit you and get all that kind of good stuff.
Yes. Well, you guys can visit me at MayCayBeeler.com, MayCayBeeler, or you can just Google MayCay Beeler. Jack, we've got a website for Jack, too. You can order the book via an Amazon link right on my website, or you can go to jackcarltonreed.com, or you can just Google Buccaneer, The Provocative Odyssey of Jack Reed. It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, and any of your booksellers would have it. So we'd love to hear from everybody. I know this is provocative, and I know this is troubling subject matter to some people. So for those of you, don't read the book. I don't want you to get upset. Life's too short. But for those of you who love true crime, this is an easy read, and we just won our 8th book award. Los Angeles Book Festival for biography.
Very cool.
So we're grateful.
Again, MayCay, thank you so much for coming on the show. It has just been a blast, and the hour went by entirely too fast.
Oh, my gosh, I know.
Guys, we got to get out of here. And Clarissa, it's been an honor again having you on the air. And Eric, tomorrow night, man, we're hitting it again. So you want to tune in and listen for that. And until next time, guys, take care of each other, love each other. And, hey, pick up the book, Buccaneer. Give it a read. You're going to love it. Thank you for listening to this edition of After Hours AM. And please remember to like us on Facebook and also follow us over on Twitter.